Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching this video that is part of the Funding Your Graduate Studies here at Concordia University. My name is Cecilia Kramer. I'm the Fellowship Advisor of the School of Graduate Studies, and my role here at Concordia is to help you through the whole process of applying for any scholarship or fellowship, focusing in tri-agencies and FRQ. Today, we are going to focus our meeting in how to develop a competitive scholarship. I'm going to share with you many strategies, many tips. So let's start with that. So basically, when we're talking about awards, we're talking about internal awards. They are usually not, they are offered with the admission letter. Many times you don't have to actually compete. You don't have to write a specific application for those ones. So I'm not going to mention them. I am going to focus in all these awards that you do require to write a research proposal or to write a personal statements, that you have to apply for them, and they are extremely competitive. They can be tri-agencies, they can be the Fonds de Recherche du Québec, or any other external program that you might be interested. I'm thinking the Arbor Foundation, I'm thinking the Trudeau Foundation, Mackenzie. Many of these awards, you have all information about these awards in my other videos, but also in the website. I'm going to share that information later on. I'm not going to talk about the specificities of these awards. I'm just going to give you broad tips and strategies of how to start applying for all these competitions. So let's start understanding first what are the main elements of an application. So what do you have to do when you decide, okay, I'm going to apply? The main elements, sometimes we just think that are the research proposal or your transcript, but actually there are many things that you have to consider. We're going to be talking about the eligibility criteria, guidelines, selection criteria, of course, the personal statements and research proposal. I'm not going to touch in these presentations another important thing that you should consider, that is your transcripts. If the application requires official transcripts, you have to order it with time. Your CV, depends what competition we're talking about. They might need specific formatting for the CVs, and reference letters. We're not going to talk about that. If you're interested, I have other workshops and videos that you can search for them online, that I talk in detail about these aspects. So let's start with eligibility criteria. And this is one of the most important and the first thing that you should do, because even if you're the greatest candidate, but you're not fitting in the eligibility criteria that these competitions are looking for, your application will not move forward. For example, there are many competitions that are only looking for international students. If you're a Canadian citizen and you're applying for that competition, your application will be dismissed. So really pay attention. Eligibility criteria can go, as I say, citizenship, but also program of study. If you're in a research base or you're in course base, each program will tell you what are they funding. They will tell you, for example, eligibility period, that you can only apply for this scholarship between, for example, 0 and 12 months, or in the first 3 years, or in the first 6 semesters. Really depends on the application. But please take a look, grab pen and paper, and make your calculations. If they say 36 months since the start of your PhD, for example, then start your PhD and start calculating and start counting how many months you have. Because if you have 1 extra month, then as I say, your application will not move forward. Another things to consider, many of these competitions, they will require a specific GPA. Many of them no, many of them are going to say have a first class average. So you might want to understand that how you want, but we have to be conscious that these competitions are competitive, right? So if you have a very low GPA, but you still want to apply, I will say apply, because this also is a huge learning experience for you, but you will be applying knowing that the chances are low. You do need to have a good standing GPA. If you're interested specific in tri-agencies and FRQ awards, I have a specific video. You can look for it in the playlist. It's called External Funding Opportunities for Graduate Students in a Research Program. Here, I also talk about the Arbor, Trudeau, Mackenzie, MyTax. I do talk about other opportunities, and I do go eligibility criteria in all of them. So please take a look on this one because it will help you decide which opportunity you are going to be applying for. If not, you can always go to the website of each competition or the SGS competition funding website. So once you read the eligibility criteria, you say, okay, I'm applying for this one. What's the next thing that I want you to do? If the competition is open, they usually have very specific guidelines that you will have to follow. For example, they can be, you have to write a research proposal of 1 page. Perfect. You know there is only 1 page, but how that page is going to look like. It can be a single space, it can be double space, it can be the margins. For example, most of these competitions, tri-agency FRQ, they will require a specific font. For example, this example that I'm putting here, I think is from Shared Doctoral. It says Times New Roman font, point 12. So you really have to pay attention to these things because we're going to see it in a bit. If I'm a reviewer and I'm reading an application and I can see that this is not Times New Roman, or they're trying to put a font in point 11 instead of 10 or instead of 12, then I always think that you're not reading guidelines very well. So how are you going to do a research proposal if you cannot read guidelines? And also it's like, are you trying to outsmart me? Like, are you trying to crank more information in the application, like by decreasing the margins or by decreasing the fonts? So really, really, when you're following the guidelines exactly how the presentation is requiring, it will already make the reviewer seeing you with good eyes, right? So you're not putting any stress on them. They're not putting like, any bad taste. So one of the things that I will advise you to do, if the competition is open, go and check the guidelines and set a workspace. If the competition is, the margins, the font, you know what you have to do. If you need transcripts in a PDF formatting, get ready for that. So really, really is something that you can start doing right now when you're not stressed, and it will make a huge change. Again, I will put this in the description of the video. I put you the guidelines that FRQ and CERC, CIHR, and SHERC doctorals or masters have, because as I say, I specialize in these awards, but any other award, they can also have their own guidelines. So please, please take a look at that. And the last thing that I'm going to mention in this section is selection criteria. This is another thing that you can start already doing. Each competition will have a specific selection criteria, right? You can find this on the website of each competition. Please give them a read, because why? When the reviewers are going to be approaching your application, they will probably have these selection criteria beside them. And they will be reviewing your application following these guidelines, these selection criteria. So if they see, for example, that they have to give you a ranking for research contributions, and they go to your application, and they should be able to find research contributions easily. So the easier the job, the happy they will be with you. So try to align your application with the selection criteria. Identify exactly what they are looking for and try to mirror. For example, CGSM or CGSB, the master's or the PhD program for tri-agency, they will have different weights in different things. For example, both of them are going to be weighting your application at a 50% on academic excellence. We're going to see how it looks like. But for a PhD student, 50% of the application will be on research potential. For the master's, only 30% would be for research potential and 20% for personal characteristics and interpersonal skills. If we are thinking about it, what does it really mean? It means that for a PhD, the reviewers, they will have expectations on your research potential more than for a master's, right? Because a master, maybe you just finishing your undergrad, you don't have experience in research potential. So why I'm going to give you points that are so heavy for research potential? Well, you might not have it. But if you're doing your PhD, you may have already experience, maybe you have publications, maybe you already attended to conferences. So this is going to weight a bit more. So when you're writing a proposal, you have to think about these things. For example, what they look like. Academic excellence. Of course, academic excellence can be the transcripts. That's easy. They will see transcript, GPA, good. But also, for example, they will also take a look at the duration of your previous studies. Have you done a bachelor in 10 years, a bachelor in 4 years? Have you done 2 bachelors? Did you finish a master 10 years ago, 5 years ago? The course load. Have you been taking, like, I don't know, 6, 8 courses per semester? So all these things, they are taken into consideration when they are reviewing your application. So of course, they will see this in the transcripts. They will see if you have to apply a CV. They can also be looking for all these indicators in your reference letters, maybe. Maybe you have a reference letter from a professor that is saying that you are A+ student, and they are explaining how the system works in a specific university. So all those things, they have to be somewhere in your application. Something that maybe is not so straightforward is the research potential. Research potential can also be, for example, publications, conference, perfect. But if you see on the website, I think this is from this CGRCM doctoral. So indicators, for example, they will look, yes, the academic training, relevant work experience, but also enthusiasm for research, originality, initiative, autonomy, relevant community involvement, and outreach. And the sources, where can they look for it? They will be, if there's any personal leadership statement, referee letters, referee assessments, the research proposal. So my advice to you right now is, okay, you're going to be applying for doctoral funding, FRQ, or tri-agency. Go to check the selection criteria, make yourself a list, and start thinking about your experience and how your experience can fit all these indicators. For example, ability or potential to communicate. Okay, yes, I provide a talk or a conference. Okay, I can mention this. Or community involvement and outreach. Okay, I was part of this I don't know, this volunteering that I did for science communication. I can work on this. So try to create a list with all these indicators and all your experience. So at the moment that you are writing your personal statements or your research proposal, you're making sure that everything is in your application. So talking about personal statements, let's see how we are writing these ones. So what I call personal statements is everything that is not the research proposal. They can take many different shapes. It can be called research contribution, statement on leadership, relevant experience, justification of research location. Each of them will be clearly explained on the competition website. They will tell you exactly what they want to hear. So please read them and follow the guidelines. Here I put some examples. For example, research contributions, I think this is for shared doctoral. They will tell you that they can include exhibitions, performances, publication, presentations, film, video, audio recordings, research reports, policy paper. So they give you like a broad idea of what you can include there. For example, there are competitions that they will ask you to put only the 5 most significant research contributions that you have. You may have 10. You have to choose 5 because they are asking you for 5. They are not asking you for 6. They're not asking you for 7. They will ask you for up to 5. You can put 4, you can put 3, but if they say up to 5, it's 5, okay? Other, they will only ask you to list them. Don't describe them, don't give me more information, just a list. So you just have to put a list. Others will ask you, for example, describe your participation in relevant professional, academic. So a description is really a description. Tell me everything that I need to know about this particular activity. So take your time, read the guidelines. Each competition, they will tell you exactly what they want to listen and follow them, okay? Whatever you're creating, a research contribution, relevant experience, whatever, I will try to give you some tips. The narrative and the formula in these ones, they vary from person to person. If they're telling you describe, there are people that are describing in a way, there are people that are just writing more sentences and statements. So the narrative following the guidelines of the application will depend on you. But I will advise you that even if you write however you want, there are some things that I will recommend you to be sure that they are there. The one thing that I will ask you is to align your narrative with the funding priorities, right? So if we are applying for a funding opportunity that is focusing in research, okay, you are a great researcher, you're doing your work, but for example, if you are applying for a competition that is more social impact, more involvement, so really when you're writing the applications, try to ask, how does your profile fit with the competition? And for that, you have to do some kind of research. So do some research on the funding agency. Do some research about tri-agency, FRQ, Arbor, Trudeau. They are all kind of looking for similar but very different things. So you should know their value. You should know their goals. Maybe sometimes we think that it's better to write in bullet points and more like, straight to the point. But I think with that, you're missing one opportunity that is to really express who you are. So I will advise you to try to use some storytelling to bring your motivation and the values to life. And why am I saying this? Because the people that are reviewing your application are people. They have biases and they don't want to be bored. They want to be engaged. And if we are having a bullet point kind of situation, and if you're just, listing your achievements when the application allow you to expand, allow you to explore more things, but you're just creating a list, then the reviewer, there are big chances that they might get bored and they might not engage with you so much. So show your experience, how they will shape your path, and how they prepare for what's next. Show your motivation, why you're doing what you are doing. So really use these personal statements to showcase who you are. Another thing that I want to mention here, most of these applications, they are not going to fund only the research or the researcher. They're going to fund the person. So you may have an amazing research proposal, but then your personal statements fall short. Then probably you're going to lose some points because they really want to find someone that is like a whole person, is a researcher, is an academic, is someone that is committed socially, and also someone that is a good person. So please think about all these things. And the only way for you to really showcase those things is through your personal statements. As I say, use your personal statement to show the reviewers you are a compelling candidate and that you are ready to take on a leadership role, that you're ready to take on the next challenge. It might be a master's, it might be a PhD or postdoc. You are ready, okay? The next thing that I will mention is, and this is something I see a lot, highlight your own strengths. Many students are scared of looking too arrogant when they're writing personal statements. In my experience, they are usually too humble. So one thing to keep in mind, the mindset that I will want you to have is to own all the experiences and achievements that you have had. Use an active voice. Here I put an example. Maybe instead of saying the project was completed, no, I led a research project. I completed the project. I created this collaboration. I got the award. So try to think like all the experience and then all the things that you have done and how you are the center of that. For example, you can say, yes, you volunteer or you collaborated with this person, but you can also explain to me that thanks to this motivation that you have, or because you were very interested in this research, you were looking for that collaboration, you approached to this professor, and then you start talking, and then you creating a collaboration. The storytelling is very, very, very important in these things. We have to also know we are not perfect. We have limitations. We have weakness. We might have done mistakes in the past or whatever. So don't bring them if you don't need to. But if there's something that is clearly in your application that you feel that is a weakness, you can completely address it. You can tell me, for example, I don't know, if in your undergrad, in the first months or in the first semesters of your undergrad, you have very low GPA for X, Y reasons, personal reasons, I don't know, whatever, someone was sick in the family, or you have to work full time to pay for your education, or I don't know, you move provinces, you move countries, you were completely lost, you didn't know how to really study, but then your GPA increased. So that's something that you can easily explain. And you can explain it in a way of like how I overcame challenges, right? So yes, you have a low GPA at the beginning, but look at me now. I'm starting a master, I'm starting a PhD. I overcame this. My GPA is great now, and I'm ready and I'm focused to do the next step. So really, really try to think about this mindset when we're writing all these personal statements. And then demonstrate the impact of your actions. You can tell me that you have volunteered in an organization, but it would be nicer if you explain to me why you wanted to volunteer there. What have you done? How that volunteering activity or the research activity or whatever activity that you are explaining, how that actually have an impact in someone. Maybe it's in you. Maybe the impact was in you and it made you decide to continue this academic pathway, but really try to explain the why, the what's the goal, and all in between. So that was with personal statements. Now, the second thing that you will have to really put the effort and write on it is about the research proposal. So when we are writing the research proposal, you might have experience writing scientific papers, and I put scientific paper here, but it can be a book, it can be a thesis, it can be, I don't know, whatever, an exhibition or something. And this is very, very different than research proposal. When we're talking about paper of a publication, we are focusing in the data, we're focusing in the methodology, we're focusing on the results, right? The research has been done already. So we know all those things. Also, who is the person that are going to read this? The paper, a publication, is going to be read by someone that has already some previous knowledge. So it can be heavy on jargon. It can be very specific, and there's no problem with that. So a scientific paper, a thesis, or any kind of publication basically is going to focus on demonstrating the significance of the results. This is completely different than the research proposal. A research proposal has to focus on the future research. You still don't have data. You don't have a result. What do you have? You have a good question. You have a good motivation. So you have to convince me that we need to get these results. We need to have the answer for this question. So it will emphasize on this background, on this issue, on the justification of the proposed research and its relevance. Yes, we're going to talk a bit in a second who are the reviewers, but these people that are going to review your application are not in your field. There are low chances they are specific in your field, so it had not be heavy on jargon. It has to be understood by everyone that is kind of doing any research in a broad field. As I say, to aims to convince the community of the importance of and the feasibility of the research project. So you have to convince me that you have a good question and that you are the right person to do that research and to get the results. Okay, and of course the research has not been conducted yet. So what are the main aspects of a research proposal? So first, we have to think that the research project has to be for a period during which the funding or the program it will take. If, for example, you are writing a research proposal for a master program, but I read the proposal and it's clearly going to take you 6-7 years to complete, then we have a problem because you're doing a master. A master should be 1-2 years. The same, the opposite. If you're writing a research proposal for PhD funding, and I read it and it's like, this can be done in 1 year. What are you going to be doing the other years? A PhD can be 3-4 years doing research. You're only going to be doing some interviews and that's it? No, it has to be for the duration of your program. As I say, and I will keep saying it, must be specific without being too jargon. It has to be clear. We're going to talk about how to ask for feedback, but I always heard this, that a friend should be able to read it. I'm not sure about that, but a colleague should be able to read it. Maybe someone that is in your field, but not really studying the same thing than you. We're going to talk about this. But maybe someone that you did your undergrad with, it should be able to read it and to understand it. It has to be concise. If they are asking you for 1 page or they're asking you for 500 characters or 500 words, they have to be respected, okay? And the margin as well. They have to be balanced, the weight, the space between the sections. I have a specific workshop talking about all these things way more in detail. You can come to my workshops or you can find the video later on. So of course, if we have to write a 2 pages proposal and we talk a page and a half about the introduction, what are we doing? How are we going to fit in the half page that we have left? Methodology, significance, objectives, hypotheses. It makes no sense. So really try to make a good balance between all the sections that you need. Of course, you have to be coherent. It has to make sense. You have to answer why you're doing this, how you're going to be doing it, what are you going to be answering, when are you going to be doing it. It's a very good idea, and many of these competitions, they will require a timeline. So you have to really, really plan how the next years are going to look for you. And of course, it has to be compelling. We are going to be talking about this, but you have to convince the reviewers that you're the right person, asking the right questions with the right tools, in the right ways, with the right researchers at the right institution. So all those things, you have to convince me and the reviewers about all these things. Okay, so what a proposal has to have. All these sections are extremely important, so I'm not going to say this is the most important part. No, all of them are important, so you should have to spend time working on each of these sections. So the first one is the background, the context, why the research is important. And this is extremely important because if you are not hooking me up from the beginning, if I don't understand the problem, then I'm not going to be interested in your proposal. So my advice is like start with a strong statement. You have to set the importance of the proposal from the beginning, and we're going to see why in a second. After the context, the background, okay, move on to the research question. So I always say that the background starts like this and start narrowing it to my research question, the main question to my proposal. And with the main question, the research question, you can talk about the objective. The objectives, they have to be clear. They have to be concise. You can enumerate them if you want. You can say, this is my main question. Objective number 1 is this. Objective number 2 is this. You might have a hypothesis. That is fine. You might not have it. Many research projects are exploratory, so you should not worry about that. What it has to be there is the research question, okay? You can even make it easy and say, my research question is this. After we understand the problem, we understand your question, we understand the objectives. How are you going to be doing this? Methodology. So the methodology is important, and I always say that to the students. I have to think, I have to have a clear idea in mind of how the next years are going to happen to you. So clearly describe the methodology. You can cite the work that you might be basing on, the description of the analysis, how you're going to be analyzing your data. All those things, they have to be there. And finally, the significance. If I finish reading a proposal and I am like, so what? They were having a problem. We really, really, really need to explain the significance, and not only in the field that we're working, not only in academic significance, but also in the society, how your research might impact the community, the society per se. So really, really think outside the box and really think how are you going to be able to get your results and translate it to the community. And of course, citations, references. Every statement that you say in a research proposal has to be backed up, has to have a reference. Last thing I'm going to say about research proposals is the writing process. Experiment is very daunting to be sitting in a blank page and starting to write. What I was working for me is use audio notes. I was sending audio notes to myself, and then I was listening to me. And my advice is to talk, talk to people about your research. Because once you start talking with a colleague, with your mom, with your dad, with your family, with whoever, I don't really care if they understand or not at this point. What I do care is for you to understand how you are expressing your research. Because you will start thinking, okay, I'm talking. Ah, yes, but I forgot to tell you about this. Okay, I'm coming back. Okay, this is something that I have to mention at the beginning. So you start creating the storytelling. The more that you talk, the more that you express your research, you start building the storytelling that will make much more sense. And I assure you, if you have done the work, it shows. Once we're reading the proposal, it really shows that you have done all this.